Hey there, art fans. Ready for a deep dive where masterpieces meet mayhem? We're going deep on Picasso's War by Hugh Eakin.
Oh, this one's a page-turner.
I know, right?
It's not just about the art, it's about how Picasso's work got mixed up with all the craziness of the early 1900s. World wars, wild personalities, you name it.
Okay, let's get into it. So the book opens with this mystery painting, The Sleeping Gypsy, by Henri Rousseau. There were rumors it was going to end up in the Louvre. Big deal.
It was a big deal for sure, but get this, an American lawyer, John Quinn, buys it. Sight unseen.
What?
Yeah, just on Picasso's recommendation.
That's a serious leap of faith. So who was this John Quinn? Rich guy with eccentric taste or what?
Oh, he was way more than that. Quinn was a force of nature. Lawyer who just poured his energy into art and literature. Tireless advocate, champion of the avant-garde.
Sounds intense.
And his personal life. Let's just say straight out of a gossip column.
Oh, really? What kind of gossip are we talking?
Well, let's just say Quinn wasn't a fan of marriage, and he had a string of romantic affairs. The book even talks about his relationship with Mae Morris, William Morris's daughter.
No kidding.
Yeah, she was heartbroken. She even wrote him saying, like, you brought me to life, and then what? My heart is breaking.
Ouch.
Right.
Sounds a bit of a heartbreaker, but I guess he was really passionate about art.
Totally. Quinn became like the go-to guy for supporting the avant-garde movement here in America, championing writers, funding exhibitions, even fought to get rid of that pesky art import tax. He was serious about making modern art accessible to everyone.
That's pretty cool. And then we have the Armory Show in 1913.
Yeah.
So that was a total game changer, right?
Oh, yeah. You think, okay, a controversial art show, big deal. But this was America's first real taste of the avant-garde. It set the stage for everything MoMA would later become. Imagine this massive exhibition in an actual armory filled with works by artists like Duchamp and Matisse, who were completely unknown in the U.S. at the time.
I bet the public was a little shocked.
Shocked is putting it mildly. They were totally bewildered. People were comparing Duchamp's nude descending a staircase to a runaway horse. They just didn't get it at all.
I can just picture those New Yorkers scratching their heads. What in the world am I looking at? It must have been quite a sight to see.
It was a total culture clash. But right in the middle of all this chaos to John Quinn, championing these artists and their radical vision, when everyone else was like, what is this madness?
So we have this explosion of modern art in America.
Yeah.
But was America just catching up to what was happening in Europe?
Exactly. The real hotbed was Paris, like a giant creative laboratory. Gertrude and Leo Stein's salon, where all the cool artists and intellectuals hung out. The Bateau Lavoir, this crazy building where Picasso and other artists lived and worked. And then these savvy art dealers like Ambroise Vollard and Daniel Henry Kahnweiler, who saw the potential in this new art movement.
And this is where Picasso really starts to shine.
Oh, absolutely. His painting, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, was a total bomb, broke all the rules, and it led to Cubism, which changed art history forever.
Cubism. For our listeners who may not be familiar, why was it such a big deal?
Think of it this way. Cubism wasn't just about weird shapes. It reflected a world that was fractured by war and all this new technology. The world was changing so fast. And Picasso captured that feeling on canvas.
So instead of painting things realistically, he's breaking them down.
Yeah.
Showing them from multiple angles.
That's it. And it resonated with people even if they couldn't say exactly why. It was a new way of seeing things, reflecting the anxieties of that time.
It wasn't just Parisians and American art lovers buying up these pieces, right? Didn't Picasso find support in a surprising place?
You're thinking of Sergei Shukin, a Russian industrialist, went all in on Matisse and Picasso.
Wow, that is surprising.
Right?
So modern art was going global. You realize how powerful this movement was.
And it just kept growing, fueled by passionate artists and collectors and dealers. But then World War I hit and everything changed, threw the art world into total chaos.
What happened to the artists, the dealers?
It was a nightmare. Artists like Georges Braque and Henri Gautier-Brizeska were pulled from their studios and sent to the battlefields. Gautier-Brizeska actually died in the war.
Oh, that's terrible. And the dealers, what happened to them?
Imagine. Daniel Henry Kahnweiler, a German national but living in Paris, has all his possessions seized by the French government. Complete disruption of the art market. It was a dark time for the art world.
And amidst all of this chaos, what about John Quinn? Did he give up on modern art?
No way. Even with the world at war, Quinn doubled down. Using his influence to support exhibitions, sending aid to struggling artists. He even helped to smuggle art out of war-torn Europe to keep it safe.
Wow, that's some serious dedication. It makes you wonder what happened to all this art and all these artists after the war. Did things pick back up or did everyone just move on?
Well, it's a fascinating turn of events. The war's aftermath and John Quinn's death in 1924 led to something remarkable, the birth of the Museum of Modern Art in New York.
MoMA. Wow, so this American lawyer, his passion for modern art helped to create one of the most influential art institutions in the world.
A legacy that's often forgotten, but it's so important to understanding how modern art took hold in America. When Quinn died, his huge collection, which he wanted to be sold, sparked a movement to create a space for modern art in New York.
So his collection was like the spark that lit the fire for a museum to celebrate these once radical, now iconic works of art.
Exactly. It was a direct response to the lack of appreciation for modern art in America at the time. People like Lily P. Bliss, Abby Aldrich Rockefeller, and Alfred H. Bar Jr. stepped up to make it happen. They understood that this art needed to be preserved.
And Alfred Bar, MoMA's first director,
Oh.
a true visionary. What was his plan for MoMA? What made it different?
Bar was a total innovator. He wanted MoMA to be more than just a collection of objects. He saw it as a dynamic space, telling the story of modern art. He even created this torpedo diagram. It wasn't just any old chart. Think of a torpedo, right? But instead of explosives, it's packed with art movements. Impressionism, post-impressionism, all leading up to abstract art.
It's like a family tree of modern art.
That's it. He wanted to show how these styles evolved and clashed. And at the center of it all, Picasso.
Of course.
Bar believed that Picasso was the essence of modern art. That energy, that willingness to break all the rules.
But I imagine trying to convince the museum's trustees to embrace Picasso was a tough sell. They probably wanted something more traditional, more safe.
You think? Remember, this is the Depression. People were looking for stability, and Picasso's art, with all the abstract forms and such, felt like the opposite.
How did Bar convince them that Picasso was worth it?
He was smart. He positioned Picasso as the symbol of creative freedom. At a time when the world was threatened by dictatorships who wanted to control art, Picasso represented something different.
He was like a symbol of democracy.
Exactly. By showing Picasso's work, MoMA was making a statement. Artistic freedom was important, individual expression. These were values at the heart of democracy, and totally opposed to those totalitarian ideas in Europe.
It's like those abstract shapes meant something more. It wasn't just about how it looked, it was about freedom of expression.
Yeah. And then there's the human element. Remember, Picasso's life was full of these intense relationships, and those relationships influenced his art.
Right, we talked about his marriage to Olga and his affair with Marie-Thérèse. How did those relationships show up in his art?
Well, look at Girl Before a Mirror. This painting captures the complexities of being a woman, the different sides of yourself, deeply personal, inspired by his relationship with Marie-Thérèse, but it also speaks to everyone on some level.
So it's not just about abstract forms, there's this emotional depth too.
That's what makes Picasso so great, blending innovation and political ideas and raw emotion. He was a reflection of his time, but he also speaks to something deeper.
But while Picasso was becoming more famous, things were getting bad in Europe. The Nazis were gaining power. How did that impact the art world?
It was a disaster. The Nazis went after modern art, called it degenerate, and removed it from museums. They wanted art to be a tool for their propaganda. Anything that challenged their views was dangerous.
So artists who were celebrated before were suddenly being condemned, their work destroyed. It must have been a scary time.
It was a cultural purge, trying to crush creativity and force their own views on art. And this is where Alfred Bar becomes even more important. He saw what was happening and knew he had to do something.
He wasn't just running a museum, he was fighting for art. What did he do?
He used his influence to help artists escape. People like Yves Tanguy, André Masson, and Marc Chagall. He knew they were in danger. Their art was a threat to the Nazis. They represented freedom of expression and independent thought.
It's amazing how brave they were standing up for art. Bar was literally saving lives and making sure creativity wouldn't be destroyed.
And he put himself at risk. Crazy, right? He was actually being watched by the Gestapo when he was traveling in Europe. That's how dedicated he was.
Wow. This wasn't just about art anymore. It was a fight against tyranny. And then World War II breaks out. What happens to all of Picasso's art?
It was a close call. Europe was in chaos, cities being bombed, the world's greatest art was in danger of being lost forever. It was a race against time. And a lot of those works from the 1939 Picasso show at MoMA ended up stuck in America, too risky to send them back to Europe.
So America, the place that wasn't so sure about Picasso in the beginning, ended up as the protector of his work. Kind of ironic, right?
Totally ironic. History's funny like that. And think about the impact. Those pieces shaped the collections of major museums and private collectors here.
A whole generation got to see Picasso's genius because of it. Picasso's War is full of these moments where art and history just crash into each other in crazy ways.
It really makes you think about art in times of crisis, how it can be both comforting and rebellious at the same time. Speaking of which, we can't finish this deep dive without talking about Guernica, probably Picasso's most powerful piece.
Oh yeah, Guernica. It's like a punch to the gut. This painting is all about the horrors of war. It's more than just art. It's about the strength of the human spirit. What happened that made him create this?
Okay, so picture this. 1937. Spanish Civil War is going on. The town of Guernica is bombed by German and Italian forces helping out the dictator Franco.
It was one of the first aerial bombings that went after civilians, right? Just a horrifying event.
Exactly, one of the first, and it shocked the world. And Picasso was living in Paris at the time and was devastated. He was supposed to do this mural for the World's Fair in Paris. But when he heard about the bombing, he changed everything, poured all his anger and sadness into Guernica.
So the painting was like a direct response to this awful event, a condemnation of war.
It was. Guernica is in black, white, and gray. It's meant to capture the chaos of the bombing. You see broken figures, twisted bodies, screaming faces. It's all about pain and terror.
It's one of those paintings that goes beyond time. It reminds us of the wars that are still happening today, the people who die for no reason.
That's what makes Guernica so powerful. It's a reminder of what war really costs. It forces us to see the bad stuff, to remember the victims, and to fight for peace.
What did people think when they first saw Guernica?
It was a mixed bag. Some people were shocked by how emotional it was, how different it was from typical art. Others got it. They understood that it was showing the horrors of war in this very real way.
I bet it was hard to look at for people who had lived through war.
For sure. But it quickly became a symbol of fighting against fascism, and it traveled all over Europe to raise awareness about what was happening in Spain.
And Guernica ended up at MoMA, right?
It did. But getting it to New York is another story. Picasso gave the painting to MoMA to keep it safe during World War II. The idea was that it would go back to Spain when there was a democracy again.
Smart move. MoMA was a safe place for art back then. But Franco was in charge for a long time. So did Guernica ever get back to Spain?
It did, but it took a while. Guernica stayed at MoMA for more than 40 years. It became one of their most famous pieces. It wasn't until after Franco died in 1975 that it finally went back to Spain. Now it's at the Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia in Madrid.
Wow, what a journey. From the middle of a war to the safety of MoMA and then finally home. Guernica is more than just a painting. It's about resilience and the power of art to speak out against what's wrong.
Exactly. And its time at MoMA showed so many Americans how brilliant Picasso was and how art can fight injustice. It changed how they saw modern art and solidified Picasso's place as one of the greats.
This deep dive into Picasso's war has been amazing. We've gone through artistic breakthroughs, political chaos, personal drama, and in the end, the triumph of the human spirit.
We've seen how Picasso's art was a mirror of his times, how he broke all the rules, and how he became a symbol of creative freedom in the face of oppression. And we learned about the people who supported his work. They make sure his legacy lives on.
If you haven't already, grab a copy of Picasso's War. It will change how you see Picasso's art and his impact on the world. We have an affiliate link in the show notes. You won't regret it. Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.